So today is the topic of flipping the script on envy, because envy can be quite a difficult thing in our lives. If we often deal with envy, then maybe today we can learn a few things about it, because envy can be quite harmful for ourselves, first of all, but also for others, of course. But envy is something very human. It's part of who we are, and many people experience it to some extent. I guess it's very hard to find anybody who hasn't never experienced any envy. I guess there is one case of one person mentioned in the Buddhist text who once asked for some food from his attendants, and the attendant said that food wasn't available. And then he said, "What does that mean? It's not available," because he had never heard that word "not available" before. So he didn't know what that meant. So this is a little story, a little bit of a myth in the Buddhist text. But in most cases, I guess we all have sometimes some things in life that we lack. So then the question comes, when we lack something and the other person has it, how do we deal with the envy that follows? There's this ideal in Buddhism of the person who is always full, like being fulfilled with themselves. This is the ideal that is also mentioned by the Venerable Sariputta, one of the foremost students of the Buddha, the foremost disciples. And he said, suppose there were a pond with clear, sweet, cool water, clean with smooth banks, a delightful place, shaded by various trees. Then a man might arrive, afflicted and oppressed by the heat, weary, thirsty, and parched. Having plunged into the pond, he would bath and drink, and then after coming out, he would sit or lie down in the shade of a tree right there. Friends, by means of a person who inspires confidence in every way, the mind gains confidence. So this is the example of a person who inspires others to good things. But unfortunately, in our everyday lives, we tend sometimes not to inspire each other to confidence, but sometimes we inspire each other to envy. So how do we deal with that? Well, envy, to understand where envy is coming from, we have to understand also a little bit about what is known in Buddhism as the four divine abodes. Now, you might have heard of these. They are also known in the text as the Brahma Viharas. They are four qualities that really are the different aspects of what love should be like, true spiritual love. There is loving kindness, which we just practice at the end of the meditation. There's compassion, similar but more involved. And there is mudita, which is the feeling of being happy with other people's happiness. And this one is often in the Buddhist text connected with is like considered to be the opposite of envy. So in the Buddhist text, they say that when we talk about envy, it's like the opposite of sympathetic joy. But sympathetic joy, being happy with other people, is not the same as being superficially happy, like when you see somebody having fun with his friends and it's just very superficial. That is not really sympathetic joy. Sympathetic joy is really seeing happiness in other person's eyes and being happy with that person. The opposite is not only envy, which is one translation, but also it's often translated as boredom. Like you can't really find you don't really feel anything when you see other people happy. That may sound like something almost autistic or something like that, but it's not. It's actually far more common than you might think. Sometimes it's because we may have some difficulty connecting with our own emotions. Maybe we are numbing ourselves in some way or for shape or form through some means. Some people drink alcohol or have some other ways to numb themselves. So this is something that is actually far more common. So sympathetic joy is something important, and it helps us not only to deal with envy, but also with boredom. Now let's talk a little bit about envy first. Envy, where does that actually come from? Why do we get envious in the first place? Well, it usually comes from a certain lack, a feeling of lack. You lack something, you feel that you are lacking something. You feel you would like you feel like you are not complete. Now, this is the feeling which we also experience when we are desiring for something. You want something very bad, and you feel you're lacking. You're not complete. If you don't do something about it and you feel your life is not complete, it's an urge. And the same way, envy can be like that. It can be similar to desire in the sense that you see somebody else experiencing something, you want that also. It can be because of a sense of disappointment in ourselves or bitterness that we feel incomplete. So there is something we can work on if we can know the cause, right? This is a very important part of the Buddhist teaching. If we know the cause of something, we can fix it. One of my teachers, he already passed away. His name was Lompinat. He always said this. He said, if you know the cause of something, you can fix it. It's a good principle. It's a good principle that any technician should adhere to. Knowing the cause, you can fix it, right? And it's also a good principle that we can use dealing with our emotions. Now, if you look at the opposite, sympathetic joy, what is that actually? It's like I just said, it's a way to connect with other people's happiness. It's a form of gladness arising from other people's success and genuine happiness. It also kind of destroys is maybe a strong word, but that is used in the commentaries. But you might also say it's like the opposite of discontentment or lack of interest in other people. So it kind of overcomes that. You might not want to use the word destroy, but the commentaries also say it quiets jealousy and envy. This is a good thing. Lack of interest is also like it's that is just gone. You immediately feel this liveliness when you see other people happy. And this is not a very rare and noble quality as you might think. I mean, it's very common for mothers or fathers to be happy with their children when they have had some success. It may be much closer than we think. It's just more difficult when we get to other people that may be more strangers to us, or maybe people who are more like competitors to us. So it's not like we are not familiar with sympathetic joy at all. It's more like we haven't learned how to expand it to others. But what is so bad about envy? Isn't it just normal that we all have a little bit of envy in our lives? Isn't that something that we should, consider part of ourselves? Well, we can't deny it. And we can certainly not just destroy it. But it's good to do something about it because it does lead to a lot of suffering. Every time when you have a lot of envy in your mind, every time you see somebody experiencing success or experiencing happiness, certain people that you have this feeling for, right? That you have this envious feeling towards. Then you see something good happening to them, you just feel you have to suffer each time, which is not good, right? I mean, if you meet them 3 times a week, then you suffer 3 times a week. If you see something good happening to them 7 times, then you suffer 7 times. This is not good. In a way, sometimes it also shows. Other people will see it and it kind of destroys your dignity. Like some teachers, they say it's like an illness, paralyzing the patient. And it also has a bad effect to the community at large. This is sometimes compared to, by Thai teachers, to watering a plant using hot water. Like the plant is you're just destroying the plant, and people around can no longer enjoy that plant. In the same way, when people in any society or in any community, when they can't show themselves, they can't show their skills, they can't show their good qualities, then it becomes kind of oppressive in a way. Sometimes in social sciences or in social commentary, this is sometimes compared with crabs in a bucket. Maybe you've heard of this. It's sometimes known as the crab mentality or the crab syndrome. You can see that in this picture. It's very clear. If you have a number of crabs and you're ready to sell them on the market, you don't even have to put a lid on the bucket. Each time one of the crabs is trying to get out of the bucket, the other ones will pull it right back in. This is known as the crab syndrome or the crab mentality. And it's kind of can work like that in many communities. We can tend to just stop each other from being successful. In my own community, in my own country, there is a saying that you shouldn't put your head too high above the sowing field. Otherwise, you get your head cut off. This is like an expression to indicate that you shouldn't show off too much. And that is good. I mean, nobody likes people who are show off, right? But it can sometimes go too far when you don't allow people to express themselves, or you don't allow people to develop themselves. Now, these days in the Netherlands, this is a lot better. I don't think it's as bad as it used to be, but it still can be kind of like a oppressive kind of aspect of any community. If a lot of people are envious, then other people that may have a lot of good initiatives and ideas, they don't dare to express them. So even just if you can't see the problem on a personal level, then especially on a social and a community level, envy is something we really need to work on, because it's so powerful on the other side of the story. It's so powerful if we can really encourage other people, right? If we can really encourage each other to do good and give ourselves space to do that and honor each other in that way. So there is where envy has a problem, where envy can be very limiting, and envy in many ways can be very destructive. So how do we deal with it? Well, we've talked a little bit about how envy is a problem right now. And we also talked a little bit about the opposite. But let's just really dive into how can you overcome envy in your lives and develop more space to develop good qualities in your heart, and where envy cannot limit yourself, because sometimes we can be our own enemy, creating all these limitations for ourselves. Nobody has to come and create limitations in our life. We are just creating our own. So this is the first one. Be mindful of your biases. Guard your biases. This is a good principle. Just being aware of your biases can already help a lot. When you know somebody who you tend to feel a little bit envious towards, maybe you don't even notice it always. You may not always notice it, but you know there's something going on there. You feel sometimes you're saying things, you don't really trust yourselves. If you know that you are like that towards certain people, right, then you can be more careful about that. You're more careful about your biases towards that person. You know, I've experienced this myself as well. When I was still a layperson, there was this woman who was very successful in her job, and I just one day I just noticed that I was saying things towards her that showed like I would not normally say those things, you know. So I kind of really was a big lesson in my life. I still remember it to this day. And I always kept it with me in my monk's life later on as well. If you know certain people, sometimes we have this sense of even though we're not aware of it, we tend to compare ourselves. So coming to the next topic, this brings us to the next aspect of how to be happy with other people's success. This is kind of a funny cartoon. Competitive meditation, right? So the other part of being happy with other people's success is just to, first of all, if you are comparing yourself with others, all right, if you must compare yourself with others, remember that there are also good things that you have and they don't. I remember one story a volunteer told me, and she was actually feeling like not so happy with another volunteer. This other volunteer, she was kind of successful in her work, guiding retreats, doing a lot of good things. And this first volunteer, she was not happy with her. And one day, that feeling had gone. And I asked her what had happened. And she said, I just realized that the person I had so many problems with, she's actually terminally ill. She has cancer. And when she realized this, the whole feeling just disappeared. So when you are envious with somebody, there's often something you might not even aware of that you do have and they don't. Like in this case, good health. There may be a lot of things that you're not aware of that you do have and they don't. Like we're really focusing on something, like everything, everything they have is just draining away from our own success. But actually, we have a lot of good things ourselves as well. And the other thing is, if you really want to take this deeper, the thing that we are talking about, comparing, right? You might just quit comparing altogether. Because if you stop comparing yourself with others, it can be a big relief. Just comparing yourself with yourself instead can be much more enlightening. Like instead of looking at other people, we just learn to reflect more on ourselves, thinking about where we were last year, thinking about where we were last month. How did we grow? What did we learn? This seems to be more restrictive, right? But actually, it's much more useful, because eventually we have to deal with ourselves. We have to be with ourselves and learn to be with ourselves in this life. So it's much more useful to compare ourselves with ourselves. And the other thing is that it's important to realize that not everything needs to be a competition or a zero-sum game, right? Sometimes there is enough to go around for everybody. And that's often the case. Like when you see somebody who's meditating very well and you feel like, well, I've been meditating for so long, I've never had such an experience. And then you just have to realize that actually it's not a zero-sum game, their meditation experience is not gonna take anything away from your own, right? If you think about it like that, it clears up a lot as well. And the other thing is that there's a little bit of a problem if sometimes we start to rejoice in other people's failings or suffering. That is something that Kunyai, the nun who founded our temple, she would always warn about that. She would say, never rejoice in other people's failings, because then that thing is gonna come back to you. That's what she always said. So we reflect, even just like war, right? It seems something very far away from our own country. I don't know if anybody's here logging in from an Eastern European country or something, which is close to Russia or something like that. But in general, it seems to be a little far away still, right? The war in Ukraine or Europe, in Ukraine and Russia. But if we start to rejoice, like, oh, this is great, they won, or this is great, they lost, or something, it can be a problem. Even that's something that we see on the news. We have to be cautious not to be rejoicing in other people's failures. Like the other day, there was a volunteer here that like she's also a donator. She's also a supporter of the temple. And she said that by all the good good karma that I've done today, by all the good things I've done today, may Thailand win the war or something like that, the war against Cambodia, which was going on at the time. So all the monks immediately said to her in unison, they said to her, don't do that. Don't make that kind of don't think like that, because wars are never good. You shouldn't think like, oh, maybe win the war, or maybe may that person lose the war. Wars are never good. If you want to wish for something, wish that there is no war in the first place, that people can figure things out in a different way. So this is about rejoicing in other people's misfortunes. That's not a good thing. We should think about people's suffering and hope that everybody may be free from it in the wise way. Finally, there is a very powerful way to learn to be happy with other people's success. And that is by rejoicing in their merits, in their goodness. We use this word sometimes, maybe you've heard it, anumodana. So when you see somebody experiencing success, doing something good, showing good initiative, we can say anumodana, which means may I rejoice in your merit. May I rejoice in your goodness. And that is a very powerful tradition, very powerful custom, very powerful thing to do. And the other person may respond like sadhu, sadhu, which means I agree. I think it's a good thing. Thank you for rejoicing in my goodness, in whatever goodness that I may have. And I accept your joy, your kindness. And that is also a humble way to respond. So we can do like that. That's a very beautiful practice. Whenever we see something do something good, we can say anumodana. Whenever we see something making a good decision in their lives, we can say that's a good thing. Wow, that's really a great thing that you've helped to accomplish that you've accomplished that. The other day, a volunteer told me that she was able to overcome her anger that she had cherished for a long time towards some other people, some other volunteers. And this person was able to ask forgiveness as well, was able to really come to reconciliate with that other person. And I said, this is such a great thing that you helped to accomplish this. I was really happy with her because it seemed to me like a very difficult thing to achieve. So I told her that. And I think when we are happy like that, it's a powerful kind of happiness, right? We don't even need to do anything for it ourselves. We can learn to be happy with other people's happiness. That's the great thing about many kinds of loving kindness that people show towards each other in this world, whether it be parents to their children or siblings to their younger siblings, or anything like that for that matter. When we are learning to be happy with other people's happiness, our mind expands, our heart expands, and happiness becomes something much broader than just our own life, which is sometimes, much more powerful if we can see that across boundaries, across people, can see those things. So we can also practice sympathetic joy in meditation. We can think, for example, just now when we meditated, just now I tried to put it a little bit into the guidance that we just did just now. When I guided the loving kindness meditation at the end of the guidance just now, I asked all of you to really be happy with all the happiness of all the people in the world. And that's one way to practice, just thinking about the past, present, and future successes, and also the happiness of a friend. Maybe you think about friends or family, people that you love, and think about all the good things that are going well in their lives, and be happy with that. That is not a difficult thing to do, usually. And then you can move on to neutral people, thinking about all the people that we don't really know very well. The people living close by, but you don't really know them very well, or people living farther away, maybe people living in other countries that we've never met. all the people in this world, all of them that are experiencing happiness, we are happy with them. We are happy with their happiness, with their success. And then you might even expand your thoughts if you're up for it. If you're up for it, you can even expand your thoughts to all the people that you have problems with. And you think about, well, at least they may not be perfect, but I'm happy if they can find some happiness in their lives in a good way. You know, they may have been really annoying most of the time, but at least I'm happy that they have been able to find some happiness in a wise way. So that's a good thing. You can practice it. It's a way of thinking. It's not you don't have to think of it as something forced. It's just a practice, and we can do softly plant the right seeds in our heart and mind. And sometimes we don't have to wait for these things to just develop naturally. Just planting the seeds very gradually is a natural process. It's part of the gardening of the mind and heart. So this is all I'd like to share with you today about the idea of overcoming envy. It's been a pleasure and an honor to do this evening together with you. And I'll see you next time. May you all find happiness and joy and wisdom in your lives.